Good afternoon once again, and welcome to the second webinar of the day, the sixth day of the 2023 IHF Coaches and Referees Education Week. We've learned a lot over the past week about handball and the new tendencies in handball. My name is Adrian Costello. I'm a member of the IHF media team, and I will be your host in this webinar. And I was also the host for the previous webinars. And of course, we, together with our experts, touched interesting parts of the sport. Like the other webinars, there is translation available. You just need to go to the bottom of your Zoom app. There is the interpretation button. You need to click that glow button, and then translations in French, Spanish, and Arabic are available. It's that easy to switch from English to your preferred language. All of the webinars are on ihfeducation.ihf.info. They're available on demand, so you can watch them over and over again if you want to strengthen your knowledge about handball. This is the 10th webinar of the 2023 IHF Coaches and Referees Education Week, and we have a special guest with us, Jorge Dueñas, the former Spain and Brazil's women's national team coach and current coach of Slovakia women's national teams. And his lecture will be the defending against line players, correct and incorrect defense. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adrian, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I will rob the work. Today is for me a big pleasure to stay with the people of handball, and I try to share my knowledge and my ideas about handball. In this case, about the situation with the pivots. Last day, I think that on Tuesday, we can see very interesting presentation with Per Morten Sordal and Glenn Solberg about the pivot play, more or less about relation with about the rules and maybe the possibilities of the rules in the situation with the pivot. And today my idea is more or less to try to share these ideas with more open more ideas and try to find different solutions about the situation with the pivots and the situation with the defense of the pivots. In the presentation before, we look the situation in the wings with the referees of Slovenia. Very interesting because I think that in the rules and for the coaches and for the players, sometimes it's not easy the situation in the wings and in this case in the situation with the pivots and the line players, because I think that when we have these situations, we have a lot of contacts. The players are very, very close, and we have difficulties to understand and to find clear solutions. So I try to show in my presentation different ideas and maybe different point of view. So first, the line players. We have now nowadays we have different characteristics of pivots, tall and very tall pivots with big weight, a lot of kilos, and with span. And all the coaches of the world know that today, in these days, we have a lot of situation in 6 meters with the pivots, because in a lot of cases we can find wings who goes inside 6 meters, maybe situation diagonally with 2 pivots, or maybe the situation 17-6. So this situation for the coaches and for the referees now are difficult to find the solutions and to find the solutions to defend these kinds of situations. In my point of view, these circumstances of the games, the situation with the pivots, finding the two pivots, big pivots, or maybe pivots moving in the line of 6 meters, needs a specific technique to defense, and we need to find solutions to defend these kinds of situation. So we know that pivot position is very different than the other positions. Normally we have two big different positions, the goalkeeper and my point of view, the situation of the pivots, because this player playing in 6 meters, next of 6 meters, close to 6 meters, usually with their backs to the goal, and they practice contacts, but at the same time the pivots receives contact too. So the defense of the pivot is an increasingly complicated situation, and my point of view requires a specific technique to be effective. So this specific technique is necessary to adapt, to adjust to the rules. At the same time, we know that the blocks, when the pivot practice the blocks, it's important to practice with correct technique, and at the same time, the defenders must avoid can be blocked, preventing occupying a certain position. So this is my point of view about the situation with the pivots and the defense of the pivots to introduce my presentation. So first, in the presentation, I try to show you the situation of the blocks, what different types of block we can find during the games, and I think that if we are able to understand this, then we can understand different situations to defend the situation of the pivots when they practice the blocks. The block is the action of an attacker to momentary interruption to the trajectory of a defender for the benefit of a teammate or himself. Normally, the benefit is of a teammate, but then the continuation of the game is to the benefit is the pivot, the line player. So we have three players involved in this in the blocks. Normally, we have three players, three protagonists. We have here the graphic. First, we have a player in attack. This is the line player, player who performs the block. We have now the other attacker, normally the benefited of the situation, teammate of the blocker who initially benefits for blocking, and then we have the player, the defender who is blocked, the defender whose trajectory is interrupted. So in this situation, practice a lot of time during the match, and we must find the different possibilities in attack when we practice these blocks. So fundamentals considerations. For me, it's important to understand the regulation, the rules, because a lot of times we have discussions between the players and between the coaches and person who works in the handball, because first is the specific rule to practice to do the blocks. The regulation indicates that the blocker must arrive at the place of the block immediately before the blocker defender, so with anticipation, who must make a short stop before contact without hitting and applying mutual resistance. So for me, it's very, very interesting, because during the matches we can find a lot of blocks with no good practice, no good ideas to do with the rules, because a lot of time we look situation with the pivots blocking, but at the same time is moving. No correct position of the legs, no correct position of the arms, and it's very difficult to defend, because with this incorrect, illegal situation for the defender, is not possible to find the solution. So we must understand for our players to practice to do the blocks with according the rules. In relation to efficiency, it's important that the blockers performs the action is a surprising way, trying to start from outside the blocker's field of vision. So when you practice as a lane player, you practice a block, it's important to surprise the situation of the defender. If the defender is advised, he has information, he can prepare to overtake this situation. The same time, the blocker must not leave his position until the beneficiary does not exceed the limits of the place where the block is taking place. It's important because if the blocker leaves this situation before, the situation for the defender is easier to get success. And the last situation, the last consideration is the beneficiary must be alert to react to a possible defensive anticipation with the blocked defender. In this case, the free space will be in the zone opposite to the block, and the beneficiary must progress through it. We will call the responsive false trajectory. So this is another situation when you try to practice a block and the reaction of the defender is correct. Maybe the player who takes the ball and the benefits of the situation can change the trajectory to surprise the defender. So we talk about a lot of times about the situation with the contact. In this case, when we talk about the blocks, it's important to take advantage of the physical contact. So we can find different blocks. I try to find the difference in blocks in the first line in defense, in the close to 6 meters. Then I try to find a different solution in when the blocks are doing in far of the 6 meter, maybe 8-9 meters in the second line of defense, because then we understand this situation, we can find different solutions to defense. So in this case, we have in the graphic one situation with the block in 6 meters, close the area, and in this moment open the space for the pivot, and the player who has the ball can pass of this player. So the target of this situation is to find a space to receive the ball. It's one of the ideas when the pivots practice the blocks. Try to find a space for receive the ball. Here we can look two different situations. First, the situation opening a space to receive the ball. And the moment that the back is attacking, the pivot is blocking and opening a space to receive the ball. And in this moment, the ball is taken by the pivot. And now we can find other solution. In this case, the block is in front of the defender, no, in the side of the defender, and we can look at the situation. The defender inside 6 meters, open space for the pivot and receive the ball inside and take advantage of this space to get goal. Okay, so it's interesting to understand when the blocks are in close 6 meters, the situation of the defender must the defender must understand no using the line to defense. You can find this situation and when the pivot is open the space to receive the ball, and in this case we look the defender of the pivot running inside 6 meters. In my point of view, this is a no good situation for the defender, and the defender can understand when the pivot is inside close 6 meters, this situation must ready to find solution by other way. So look now the situation, and the defender is taking the ball, is intercepting the ball inside 6 meters. We can look at the situation, and now the defender takes the ball but no success. At the end, no success of the situation in defense because the shoot is out, but it's important understand the rules. Don't give chance to run inside 6 meters. Okay, so close of 6 meters, but now blocks in the second line of defense, maybe in 8-9 meters. We can call these situations dynamic blocks, and in the graphic we can look the situation. The defender is out, in this case in 9 meters. The moment that the beneficiary of the situation receives the ball, in this moment the block, and the player with ball, the left back, take advantage of this, or maybe pass to the pivot, and the situation is good for the pivot. So different situation near close 6 meters or far off 6 meters. And we can find the dynamics blocks in defense 5-1 or maybe in defense 6-0. In this case, in 5-1, with this block in 9 meters, to take advantage of this situation, the player with ball is free to shoot because the blocking is correct to take off the situation advantage. So then, other situation is with defense 6-0, and the situation is now with dynamic glove. To beneficiary is the pivot to find the solution. Okay, different situation, one in 5-1, other in 6-0. Good timing, the pivot, keep the position to open the space, and then receive the ball. So when we look this, we can think advantage or disadvantage of doing about the block. So for me, in this situation, if the defenders go above the block, maybe the advantage is standing the ball passing line, but the opposite situation, the disadvantage maybe is more distance to run past the blocker. In the graphic, we can look the situation. Okay, in this moment, the block, sorry. The block, and in this moment, the defender goes up of the block and situated in the pass line to intercept the ball. So it's interesting this situation to understand because it's one of the way to defend these situations, and the other one is try to doing below the block. So in this case, we have a space in 6 meters to get over the blocker, but maybe the disadvantage, pivot can receive the ball, although the defender will be in the line of shooting. In the graphic, we look now, if the block is now, this player has big space to find solution here and try to keep the thumb, keep the space to stop the pivot and avoid clear situation. In this case, I would like to explain a little bit more. Okay. Okay, this player, the pivot can receive the ball, but in this moment, the defender can be in front of the pivot, and at the same time, it's easier to avoid the shoot and to avoid the situation 1-1 with a small space and no specific situation for the pivot in front of the goal, different when the pivot receives the ball back with the back of the goal. So it's interesting, and in my point of view, maybe this situation is easier for the defender to practice, avoid to run so far, so long distance. Okay. And the next in the next clips, we can find a different situation. For example, okay, in this case, we can find one situation in the second line in defense, trying to overtake or trying to surpass the block up of the block. Pay attention of the movement of the legs and the arms. In the next screens, we try to show you better these situations. In this case, the situation is overtaking up of the block, but then in the continuation of the action, the same player, the situation when the ball returns, the defender pass the pivot from behind him, try to overtake the situation behind him. So two ways to defend the situation in the block, in the second line defense, out of the 6 meter, maybe 8-9 meters situation, trying to overtake up of the block, or maybe trying to overtake the situation down of the block. So interesting to understand this, because I think that is different ways to defend. Okay. Okay, now good example. And now when we look this, we can talk about the rules. Okay, first, for me it's interesting understand first the situation of the attackers, the pivots in attack. In my point of view, the weight of the legs of the red player is not correct, is no legal situation, because in my point of view, this is very open, the legs, and I think that more or less we can be flex in this regulation, but you can look the situation with the legs totally open. It's impossible for the defender try to overtake the situation. So in my point of view, with the regulations, we can find more clear ideas of the blocks. Maybe the situation is the projection of the shoulders, maybe or no, maybe this space, but in this case is so open. In my point of view, is clear situation of attack fall. At the same time, it's important the practice with the arms, with the shoulders, because I think that if the pivot open the arms so wide, it's impossible for the defender try to overtake the situation. So first, this situation about the regulations about the blocks. But another way, my question is, which one is the correct situation to try to overtake this block? In my point of view, with this, it's very difficult to overtake this situation. Maybe first is attack fall, but you can find this way to defend better this situation, and maybe to surprise the situation of the pivot. So this is the first idea in this clip. But now look, okay, look now the screen. My point of view, more or less this correct situation to defend the pivot, with this orientation of the legs, with the arm try to, with one arm trying to disturb the pass to the pivot, and maybe the other arm trying to contact the back of the pivot with this activity. But then the problem is the defender grabs the shears and push him back. So in this clip, we can find different situations. Maybe first is the situation to practice the blocks, and then the defense in correct situations, avoid this no legal situation. Okay, my point of view, this is clear fault of the defender, but maybe the situation start in the block, in the first steps. Okay, in this. Okay. Other situation in the blocks, it is the long blocks, very difficult to defend, and in my point of view, it's important to anticipate and try to good communication with the rest of the teammates in defense to find the solution of these cases. Because now we look the player, the left back who received the ball, and in this moment try to overtake the block to find the solution 2 against 1. Okay, so it's interesting. And this situation for this player in defense is very, very difficult because the ball is in the opposite side, totally in the opposite side. The pivot comes from the other side and is now in the field of vision to put a solution of this. We can find this example in this clip. Look now, this player with ball, and in this moment, long trajectory, the block, and in this moment, this player in defense is now able to look the block and open the space for the player in yellow. Okay. So first, in this part, the first part of my presentation, I try to show you different kinds of blocks, the difficult, the situation in attack with the blocks. So now I try to show you solutions in defense for this situation. I divide my solutions in three parts. In the first defensive solution with pivot in 1 against 1 in equality with balance. Second one is the situations 2 against 2. A clear situation when the two defenders are practicing with one back or one player and another pivot, and defensive situation with pivot in 1 against 2. So in equality situations, in this moment, the defender must be ready to react and must be ready to practice another strategies. Okay, so first, defensive situation with pivot in 1 against 1 equality. Some guidelines of the individual technical tacticals. First, in my point of view, very, very, very important is don't let yourself win the position. So this needs anticipation. It's clear to be ready to overtake the situation of the pivot. Then another idea maybe can be the first, because maybe it's better to intercept the pass. But if you want to intercept the pass, you must practice with anticipation, and you must be ready to intercept the pass. But position is important, better before the interception of the ball. Other guideline is maybe handle reception. Maybe if you are not able to win the position, to gain the position with the pivot, maybe try to disposition of the ball or no good reception of the ball. And other idea maybe is the help from the teammates in defense. So first, it's very important, the anticipation. Everyone knows about this. So in this case, good idea, control with the arms, this player, control with the arms, movement forward with the leg, but it's important the leg, far leg. It's interesting, this situation. In the next screen, I try to explain about this. Now, activity with the arm ups to intercept the ball, coordinated with the movement of the legs. Okay. Then, when you have you are in the back of behind the pivot, it's very difficult to stone him. You need spaces not to be very open and to be able to have help. For example, in side block, the pivot is situated in the side of the defender and opening the space. It's very difficult with this kind of pivot. It's impossible to defend in this situation. Maybe other idea is when the block is in front. You are behind the pivot with not so big pivot, not so strong, not so weight pivot, you are able to stop this player. But in this case, with this kind of pivots, if you are behind him, it's very difficult to try to stop him. So look now, the coach trying to explain the defender, try to turn around the situation of the pivot, trying to overtake the line of pass to avoid the situation 1-against-1 with the pivot. Okay, so this is very, very interesting to understand, avoid situation with the pivot, gain the line of pass. Okay, here, when you defend him from the front, you can open the space for the pivot to run, but avoid direct action in that area, and you can find a solution later. In my point of view, the first is try to find solution in the first situation. Maybe the continuation of the action, the players in attack can find the solution, but it's important first try to avoid the direct situation. For example, here, okay, this player try to play maybe with this situation it's not easy to pass to the pivot because the second in defense is controlling the pivot. Okay, open a little bit the space to run behind the defenders, but the first solution is this, and then the solution can be later. Okay, because we, in this case, the defenders of France, the white in defense, open the space to run for the pivot, but they are able to find solution later. And maybe it's the first idea is try to avoid the goal in the first situation. So now some observations. It's important observe to look the trajectory of the players with the ball to anticipate the next action, overtake the pivot through the freezes area depending on the block, and important the activity with the arms to help to overcome the block. Okay, in this example, very interesting. Look, the situation in the center defenders is clear now. Okay, now. Okay, now is problem with the draw, but this situation, this player is able to identify, to anticipate the movement of the player with ball, look the movement, at the same time helping with the arms to try to overtake the situation of the pivot. It's important practice with the legs. It's important try to the first step with the far leg of the trajectory to overtake the situation. And in this moment, it's possible to avoid the situation of the player with ball, and with success of this case of the defense. But it's very interesting to understand, anticipate the trajectory, and at the same time the movements of the legs and arms to overtake the block.
Nice right back they have. Here he comes into the wing.
Okay, now you can look this the situation of the pivot here. Remember two pivots because the wing is inside 6 meters. The situation of the pivot now in this space, and the movement with the arms. You must understand in our sport we can contact with the players in attack and defense. So in this moment, in this case, is legal situation, contact with the player, movement of the legs, and try to overtake the situation. In this case, the block is in next 6 meters. So in 6 meters, remember, you can overtake the situation of the pivot. You can overtake the situation of the pivot up of the block, up of the block. Okay. Other example, and now in this example, I try to explain some ideas. Okay. Look, this situation, this pivot is very tall and very strong. You can look last week in the Final Four in Budapest, but look the correct situation in my point of view of the defender. Look the position of the legs, and in the movement, the first movement is with the leg, far leg of the trajectory. Arms above the pivot arms. In my point of view, is very interesting this situation, because you are with the arms down. The pivot is able to receive the ball. Maybe it's possible to receive the ball, dribbling the ball, and maybe take the ball down. But if the defender has the arms up, if the ball goes up, is able to intercept. If the pivot is receiving the ball by dribbling, maybe you can touch the arms, or maybe you are able to avoid the turnaround, the spin of the pivot to find better situation to shoot the goal. Okay, so in this case, for me, it's very interesting, these situations with the arms and with the legs. And in this case, intercept the ball. Okay. Important in the situation in the middle with the pivots, when you lose the ball in attack. When you lose the ball in attack in this situation, it's so difficult to defend in fast break, because you are back of your goal, and the players who stirs the ball, who steal the ball, is easier to run. But look now, okay, look now the correct situation of the arm, with the arm here up, the other arm trying to control the player, the lane player in the back, in this position. Remember, this situation of the legs, in my point of view, very, very interesting. It's the same when you are in the athletics, races, for example, in 100 meters or different kinds of races, this asymmetric position of the legs. And in this case, in my point of view, it's important the movement of this leg, the leg which is far of the trajectory, because if you move the other leg, you need to move other step to find the solution and try to reach so far, or to try to intercept the ball. So in my point of view, it's very interesting this training, this practice, to find a good solution to defend the situation with the pivot. Okay, and don't forget, this situation happen in all the positions and all the situations in the area. You can find this situation in the center defenders. You can find this situation in the second three in defense, or maybe with the wings. So your wings, our players in this position must practice this kind of training with the pivots. Maybe a lot of times we find big difference between the wing, maybe the difference with the wing and with the line players, because the line player maybe is so tall and our wing is not so tall or so strong. So we must find the solution, maybe with anticipation, maybe with other strategies. But it's, in my point of view, it's interesting to find solutions with this situation with the pivot in all the positions. Okay, because if you don't want your wing in defense practice or defend the pivot, maybe you can find this solution. For example, a lot of times you can find this situation with the wing going inside. In this moment, the wing can run other position to defense, other situation to defense. Look now, the wing, because in my point of view, for example, in this case, Barcelona is working the situation. This player is very strong, and with this win in defense, maybe the disadvantage is very clear. So change the structure of defense, trying to find other solution. Okay. Okay, Adrian, maybe some question, or I continue? You told me that.
There are a few questions, of course, and your presentation has been very, very interesting so far. One of the questions we got was, how important are the line players in the modern game, and how did the position change from, I don't know, a decade ago or 15 years ago? If you could answer that.
Okay, so all the positions are very important, but in my point of view, now in attack, all the teams organize the situation with the attacks, with the pivot, with the line player, because first, where is situated the pivot is very important. Try to find different solutions. Different situation with the pivot player playing out of 6 meters. In the last 8, we can find a lot of situation with the pivot running in front of 9 meters, but for example, crossing between the playmaker and the pivot. And I think the attacks now increasing a lot of the situation with the pivot, with different ways, with different ideas. But in my point of view, it's very, very important the work with the pivot. By this, I think that is very important to defend in good line, in good level, the situation with the line players.
And one other question was, is it important to have a line player, that a pivot which is who is important both in attack and in defense? Because at the IHF Women's World Championship in 2021, we saw that Pauletta Foupa from France and Kari Bratsedale from Norway were crucial in both ends of the game, at both sides of the ball.
Yes, interesting. In my point of view, now the gains increase a lot of the speed, and in my point of view, in the top level, is very difficult. A lot of change in attack and in defense. So if you want to change one player in defense, I think that the pivot is more difficult to change, because it's so close, 6 meters, normally with the big problems to run far distances, and in the same times, a lot of times this player is in contact and is shooting fell down of the floor. So in my point of view, if you need to practice or to do change in defense, it's better no change the pivot. But depends of the team. Maybe you are the training and you decide this pivot must rest in defense because it's not so good in defense, or maybe to rest because it's more important and more effective in attack. You can practice this, but in top level, in my point of view, now it's very difficult to change this player in this position.
We've seen yesterday a presentation from Klaus Delgard Hansen, and he was saying that players keep getting bigger and bigger, even on wings or line players, more taller, more stronger. you've also shown an example with Lisa Chapchet. I think she was there in Vipers. How do you defend this type of offline players? How is it better to adapt and try to stop them?
Okay, with these big players with very tall and with a lot of weights, in my point of view, is very important. Very important. Anticipate the situation. If you give time to block, if you give a small advantage, it's very difficult to overtake the situation. So it's important try to anticipate, and now during the next slide I try to explain you avoid situation clearly to 2 minutes or 7 meters, because in a lot of times the situation of the players who play as a lane player receive the ball with no good balance to receive, or no good balance to shoot. So first, I think that is important, anticipate, and second one is maybe avoid situations of 2 minutes or 7 meters.
Perfect. Thank you, Jorge. You can continue your presentation now.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. So we continue more or less with different guidelines to defense. When you lose the pass line, okay, now we talk about this. The line player open the space to receive the ball. So we must find an success in other ways. So it's an emergency situation. So the defender must start, must avoid clear reception of the ball. It's important fight with the line player with body contact, arms about and in front of those of the pivot. It's important, in my point of view, that the pass can be made difficult and prevent a good reception from the pivot. So, some observation, fight for the situation with the pivot and not stay on his back. This is try to overtake the situation. And if you lose this fight, maybe the defender arms has to be very active to avoid very precise passes. Disturb a little bit, maybe no good view of the pivot to receive the ball, or maybe with the hand disturbing the pass. In this case, we can find, we can look this situation. So maybe you lose the situation with the pivot, maybe fighting with him, but at the same time working with them. It's very important. So handling reception, maybe try to find better solution, or maybe the disposition of the ball. So some observation, prevent the pivot from controlling the ball is interesting. Remember that is an emergency situation. So we must find other solution. Important, the arms about the opponent, the rival, because I think that when the arms are up, it's easier to intercept the ball. It's easier to touch the ball and the arms of the line player. And remember, as emergency, maybe you can touch, maybe you can push a little bit the elbows to no good reception of the line player. Good example here. Okay, now
The ball into the line, but stolen, but won, but inside.
it's interesting now in the repetition. Look, okay, look the situation. The pivot is clearly winning or gaining the space to receive the ball. The opponent, remember, lose the situation with the line player, but in the last moment is able to run. Remember this moment of the leg, but look the arms up, and in this moment touch a little bit the arms, and no good reception of the pivot. Okay, for me it's good situation. Avoid situations to receive the ball. Situation with the avoid the good reception. Avoid 2 minutes because no grabbing, no pushing clearly the pivot, but clearly situation trying to starving the reception of the line player. So I think that is very interesting to understand these situations for our players in defense. Okay, in the last moment, maybe the line player is able to receive the ball, and we try to overtake the situation of the pivot, maybe no good reception, but a lot of time the pivot is able to receive. So some guidelines of this. First, maybe take him out of 6 meters, push out. Maybe if the pivot is in back of the defender, clear back of the play of the defender, maybe it's interesting to protect the strong side, because maybe this pivot is able to turn around of the weak side, is maybe it's so able to good balance, and maybe it's able to shoot so clearly. And maybe the next possibilities, shoulder to shoulder of the defender, close the space, and try to find density in defense. Prevent the ball from leaving the zone. We are able to densify if situation with several players. It's important try to avoid the ball goes out of this situation, because if the ball goes out, maybe is superiority out of this situation. And all idea is not always interesting. Defense this clearly situation where the pivot has the ball, because the pivot is good balance, because you arrive late to defense, no good orientation, and if you grab the pivot and you push the pivot clearly, you have 2 minutes, or maybe you have a 7 meter big punishment that if the pivot should got no good balance. So one example, in this clip, now the pivot received the ball, and immediately the player in defense push out the pivot. This is maybe one of idea, but remember, in this situation when the pivot receive the ball, it's important the position of the legs. If you have to push out the pivot, it's important the asymmetric position of the leg. Try to help with the body, and immediately try the help of the teammates. Okay, one idea to avoid 1 against 1 if the people receive the ball. Okay, other ideas. Try to close the space between the defenders. One example here: the people receive the ball, and immediately immediately the defenders close the space, try to close the gate, the door, for the pivot. So, okay, the first small push to the pivot and immediately close the gate, the door of the players is very interesting. Or maybe the situation is immediately density. Density, if the people receive the ball, the rest of the teammates can help the player who lose the situation. Look, the situation when the red line player receive the ball, immediately the teammate help, and immediately all the players close the space with a regulation, with correct rules. Okay, so okay, but the problem is not always interesting to fight with the pivot, because it's clearly a situation to the pivot, and maybe the goalkeeper has more chances to save the ball, and as a 7 meter, or maybe you have 7 meter and 2 minutes, because a lot of time when the situation with the pivot is gaining, is winning, the punishment for the defender is 2 minutes and 7 meters. So maybe it's better avoid these situations and give chance to the goalkeeper to defense. Okay, so now in the repetition, you can look now the number 9, the white defender, the white t-shirt defender, immediately don't grab the situation of the is okay. In this moment, avoid situation of 7 meter and 2 minutes with a chance for the goalkeeper. Okay. Continue now with the situation 2 against 2. In situation 2 against 2, you can find different situations to work. Maybe with the zonal concept. In this situation, the defenders keep the thumb who is the defending. For example, the left back is attacking. This player is working with name A in defense, but immediately with this trajectory, keep the situation, defends the pivot, and the number 5 defends the left back. Okay, so this is the zonal concept, and the other idea is maybe individual concept. In this case, number 6 always continue with the left back, and number 5 continue with the line player. So some advantage and maybe disadvantage in the change of opponent when the situation is 2 against 2 with pivot. The change of opponent, in my point of view, is clearly the pivot zone has more density, and maybe the problem sometimes is the doubts in this distribution of the responsibilities. No, maybe the line of the defender is not so clear, no good communication, and no clear idea to defend one player or other player. In the sliding, when the defender are crossing, is positive, maybe it's clarity in marking because individual concept, but the problem maybe you can run more large spaces, more long spaces. So different possibilities to understand the advantage or disadvantage. Okay, so in this case, the situations in the tonal concept, change of opponent. Okay, two players in blue keep the zone, no crossing between them, and close the space to the pivot. With the idea is don't lose sight of the ball, move quickly over short distance because the defender don't have to run so long, and important work with arms to avoid opposition. Okay, remember this idea. Change of opponent, zonal concept. In my point of view, good idea. Control the pivot. Remember the situation with the legs and with the arms. Try to with contact with the player in the first line, and when the situation continue, the idea is good communication, good relation between the players. Maybe here this player can the player who has the pivot in this moment can wait a little bit, but in the moment that the players change of opponent, remember getting back fast with arms and legs. The movements in short space with the legs, quick movements, and with the arms to avoid clear pass to intercept the ball. So in this case, correct situation and intercept the ball. Good coordination, with timing between the players. This is the difficult to practice in good level, to understand and to avoid open spaces for the pivot. And when you defend in sliding, crossing of defenders, this is individual concept. The responsibility is individual. Sometimes the problem is you must run long distances, and maybe the key of the situation is the ambiguous, to be ambiguous in the situation. No, show the attackers the clearly intention of the defenders. So very interesting the situation.
The ball in there. Scoops it out.
Okay, at the beginning of the action, okay, look the situation. Okay, this player is with this player, and now individual concept, because continue with the player in the back, and the pivot run behind this player. So this player crossing with the teammate, long distance to run, at the same time low distance to run of the player who is up. So look now when the attack continue, change the position. Remember, this player at the beginning was in this position and this player in the other position, and now continue the action, and to be ambiguous. To be ambiguous in these situations, to change the distance and disturbing and fake the situation. Okay. Other example is use of two concepts in the same defensive action. In the same way that the clip before, you can find this situation. Change of opponent and individual concept. Look now. This is, for me, very, very good situation. But it's not easy to practice because good communication, good coordination, good timing. Now, two defenders in the middle on the same line and the same height. Now continue the action, and now look, this player now change and immediately individual concept, crossing between defenders, correct defense. Okay, in my point of view, very good defense here. Also, at the end, success of the win. But in my point of view, very good idea, practice this kind of defense. The most important, difficult is the coordination between the players and try to identify the difficult of these actions. But it's difficult for the attackers to find solution when you have this situation in defense. Okay, and at the end, situation in 1 against 2. Remember, disadvantage in defense. Here, one example of situation in the external situation. The key is to be ambiguous, not providing information to the attackers. When he sees the pass, he must go toward the ball with the intention of intercepting, and importance of the defender arms over the attacker arms. Remember, when you run, you help with your arms to run. When you go to defense, it's the same. You must help with your arms to run more quick, more fast, and at the same time, with this movement of the arms, you are able to avoid good passes or to intercept the ball. It's very interesting, the correct specific technique to run. Okay, this win situation 1 against 2. So remember asymmetric position of the legs, working with the arms, and no clear information what are you doing before the action. Okay, the ball is in the opposite side, but now the ball is here. So ambiguous and very active to intercept the ball. So in the central area, you can find the same similar situation. Control the player with the ball, but at the same time change the distance. Be active in the face of numerical disadvantage and react with the attacker action occurs, and identify the type of pass that can be made by setting the activity of the passing arm. Maybe the information of the arms of the player who pass the ball is very interesting. It's a tactic, it's a strategy. Okay, pass and open the pass line in this case, but at the same time change the distance and avoid clear pass to the line player to intercept the ball. Come back, return to the back player, to the line player, activity with the arms. Okay, so Finally, I think that with these ideas, all the coaches and all the trainers must understand the importance to train this situation with our players. Not only maybe in the middle, not only in some specific situation. Maybe it's important to practice and to train in different situations and different position of the area, because I think that before we talk about this, now the situation with the pivot increasing a lot of, and we can find different types of pivots with different skills. So it's very important to understand this. So with players with 14, 15 years old, it's important start to practice this situation. Remember, try to practice with them. For example, try to situations to try to overtake the situation of the blocks in this exercise. We have here in the middle the circle. One player is in defense, two different players in attack, and try to find go inside the circle, and the player in defense try to overtake the situation of the line player, avoid this player with ball goes inside, and must realize if the block is up or the block is down, to go up or down. At the same time, with this exercise, try to overtake the situation with the pivot, working with the arms and with the legs at the same time, remembering the arms up. Try to avoid clearly pass up, or maybe it's easy to run when you have a little bit up the arms to run quickly. So in my point of view, this kind of task, general task before the training is important, before the general training, the situation with a specific situation. So in this case, other exercise, and when you have two players, the players who are in defense try to avoid the pass to the pivot, but at the same time, the player who has the ball out, don't pass the ball behind the back 2 times. So I think that we must find different, for example, now in this set, this player must react because this player is passing the ball behind the back. So this player is the second player in defense is defending correct to the pivot, but at the same time the other player can practice a little bit more with the player with ball. Okay, so different situations in our trainings to find solutions with the situation with the pivots. Okay, so this is my presentation. I hope that you learn a little bit with these examples. Maybe you know everything, but in this case you can remember some ideas of the situation of the pivots and the situation in defense with the pivots.
Thank you, Jorge. Very good presentation, of course. We didn't expect less from you. So there are a few questions. First of all, when the 7-on-6 is used, because it's used more and more, especially in men's handball, with 2 line players, with 2 pivots, how do you adapt as a defense to that situation?
Okay. Now with this new rule, but with the situation 7 against 6, okay, everyone in the world is practicing the situation in attack, and you can find the solution in defense. First, we must know that when you practice in defense, my idea is try to avoid clearly goals. For example, if the ball is in one side, clearly in one side, no disadvantage, no good balance with the defenders. The same number of defenders in the side of the ball. So I think that this is one of the first ideas. Then, in my point of view, it's important to be ambiguous, know very clearly, give information. If you go clearly to the ball, maybe you open bigger space to other players. And then it's important the priorities in defense. Maybe you can think don't receive goals with the pivots, don't receive balls in the middle, in breakthrough. So we must think about the balance in our defense. In my point of view, it's important no receive easy goals because disadvantage in the zone of the ball, clear disadvantage in the zone of the ball, and no clear situation in 6 meters with the pivot and with breakthroughs.
Do you see any new trends that are appearing in the line players, how they play, how they link to the backs and so on? Because we've seen other presentations earlier in the week which stated that more and more shots are coming from the 6 meter line, not from the 9 meter line.
Yes, everyone knows that the effectivity is bigger in the science in 6 meters than in the 9 meters. So a lot of players are able to get big effectivity shooting from the far away. So in my point of view, I think that a lot of teams, a lot of coaches are trying to find better effectivity with these ideas to avoid shooting from long distance and trying to find more situation in the line player, breakthrough, or maybe in the situation in the wings. It's normal because the difference between shoot from 9 meters or from the 6 meters is very difficult. It's very big.
Do you need in a team put in different situations? Do you need a line player which can score a lot of goals, or and another one which can create spaces? Is it better to alternate and surprise the defense in these situations?
Can you repeat me again, please?
So if you need different types of line players to surprise the opponent in your team, is it better that way to have a different types of line players than only one type, 2 players of the same type?
Okay, in my point of view, I think that it's good to have different types. Maybe play one line player more bigger, more static positions to open the space for the rest of the teammates, or maybe to receive the ball, or maybe you can have other type of pivot who is able to run and generate more doubts with the movements in 6 meters. Okay, in the ideal situation, maybe if you have different kinds of types of line player. But the most important thing is good line players, and maybe you can think about the balance if this player is able to attack and defend, because now with the increase of the speed of the games, you must find about the line player must defend.
Jorge, thank you very much for your presentation and for your answers. We conclude this webinar, and we still have 2 more tomorrow at 13 CEST and 15 CEST to conclude the 2023 IHF Coaches and Referees Education Week. Until tomorrow, have a great afternoon, have a great evening. Goodbye, and thank you, Jorge, once again.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.